Hello and welcome to Pastor's Perspective, sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa. My name is Brian Perez, and it is time for you to run to your phone to give us a call at 888-564-6173. 888-564-6173 is the number. Actually, you don't have to run to your phone because we're here for 2 hours today, so you can just kind of mosey on over to your phone. You've got plenty of time to call us at 888-564-6173. We're going to be here until 5 p.m. Pacific time today. Between 4 and 5, we'll record the episode that will air this coming Monday. And right now, though, we're live at 3 o'clock p.m. Pacific time. So give us a call at 888-564-6173. And answering your questions today, we've got Bobby Conway from Image Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's joining us via the Bobby Cam. And in the studio with me, the big guy himself, the big cheese, Brian Broderson, the senior pastor of Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa in Southern California. Hello, gentlemen. What's going on?
What's up, guys?
Well, I don't like Brian commenting on my weight on the radio. I mean, that's pretty darn
not what I meant.
Hold on.
I thought maybe Cheryl had been talking to you. She was encouraging you to use reverse psychology on me to get me to stick to my diet.
No, not at all. No, that's not what I meant at all.
Jeez.
Bobby, what's the temperature back in your neck of the woods?
Oh man, it's brutal.
Is it cold?
Yeah, 30s.
Whoa.
Low 40s.
Wow.
Like that.
That explains the turtleneck.
It might.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Now I got to do this winter wear. So yeah, it's going to be, 30 degrees at 7 in the morning. It's going to be, the low was 26 today.
Wow. What's the high?
55 to the high.
55. Okay.
And then, you know what, though, it looks good, though. If you Saturday through Thursday, we're going to be in the 70s up to 80.
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
So
good.
that's
That's
right?
good. That's not bad.
Yeah.
It was 55 degrees
no
when I went
turtleneck next
outside this
week.
morning. And I thought, oh, man, no, not yet.
Yeah, but 55 is not, it's not cold, really.
No, but imagine if it was
Yeah, if it's clear
55
out.
all day. I mean, it was just 55 in the
It's
morning.
55
and then,
all day. It is cold, yeah.
But then by the afternoon, nice, 75, 80.
Yeah.
We can deal with that.
Yep. That's why we're walking around in shorts and short sleeve shirt and flip flops. Bobby's got his.
Yeah, rub it in.
Bobby's
I do
got
have a
his
hot
polar
tub
wear
though,
on
this year that is in the backyard. So that's a big difference. When you grow up in California, they're everywhere, but it's surprising. I mean, I've lived in Texas, Arkansas, and North Carolina, and they're just not as prevalent. And I thought, man, that's what you did. Like when I was kids, we'd just hang out in hot tubs all the time.
Yeah,
and
well,
we've got one and we use it.
California, everybody's a movie star, everybody's a celebrity, so you can afford those kind of things out here,
Yes, that's right. Kind of like Teslas. You see I saw a story the other day in the news that, nobody's buying Teslas, and so it's going to wind up being a big flop. And I'm like, are you kidding me? It's like every other car on the freeway out here is a Tesla. But
Yeah. It's probably because...
Yeah, I'd have a hard time with that. When I was there, I feel the same thing. Like to our listeners driving around in a Tesla, that's great. It was just a bit of a mind twist for me trying to find it all. And when you got some of that 4 on Enneagram stuff, that can you don't want to feel you want something a little bit more unique, and everybody has the same car. It does feel that way. It's unbelievable with the Tesla, but you know what? That's great. We're glad you got it. It does get to 60 really quick, and I did like that.
Yeah,
in the rental that they gave me.
Yeah. Well, if you want to maintain that uniqueness, I think maybe like a 1983 Dodge Caravan could be a real winner for you. We can probably set you up with one when you come out
How about a VW
I want a
bus?
73 VW bus.
Yes, yes. I've always liked those things. I'd love to have one.
Did you have a bus, Brian?
Oh, no.
Was for surfing?
No,
when
I
you
had
were
a
younger?
bug. I had a bug, and it was, I think it was one of the first Volkswagens ever made, because in the 1970s it was so decrepit. I mean, literally, like, the door fell off of it, and it was bad. It was in bad shape.
I loved watching your 360 shredding on the wave back in 78 or something like that, or 88. That was 1982, I think it was.
It was 81. Yeah, it was 81. Yeah.
81. That was a cool picture.
Yeah, that was back in the days when yesterday I was down in, Charlotte and I were down in Huntington Beach walking our dog, as we normally do, and we ran into our dear, dear friends, the Barans, Joey and Jennifer Baran.
Oh, cool.
And Joey and I used to surf together for years and years. And so there we were kind of just standing there overlooking the cliffs and looking at the surf and reminiscing about the old days. Joey still paddles out a little bit, but I had to confess that the last time I surfed was about probably almost exactly a year ago. And of all places, it was in Tel Aviv that I surfed with my grandson. Yeah. So, I do have big plans to reboot my surf career, but it's it's not moving along as quickly.
Better get started.
All right, 888-564-6173 is our number. Give us a call. We'd love to chat with you. You can also send us your questions on Facebook Messenger and on Instagram. And for some reason, though, you cannot send us questions using the Pastor's Perspective page on KWVE.com. We're trying to figure that out, but we suggest you call us today until 5 p.m. at 888-564-6173. Here is one that was sent in by Lucille in Gardena, California. She asks about John 5:14, and John 5 is the story of the man who was sitting by the pool of Bethesda, and Jesus healed him. And then in verse 14, Jesus tells him, "See, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you." So Lucille asks, was this man sick because of his sin? And why would something worse come to him? Bobby, what would you say to Lucille?
We don't know exactly what caused him to experience being disabled, but it does appear that perhaps he was doing something stupid and injured himself. And who knows? I mean, maybe he was inebriated and, or, something sinful was going on that caused him to experience being disabled for 38 years. Because Jesus does tell him to go sin no more. So you can see how that connection would be made, but we don't have as much detail into the background as we would like, but I can be sympathetic to that kind of a look at that, where on another occasion, when they asked who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind. And we learned, it was neither him or his parents. This was permitted and for the purpose of God glorifying himself through this healing. And so you think about how even in a fallen world with disabilities, God could be glorified. And then I would say the final piece is what a gracious Savior. If he got into some kind of an accident that debilitated him because of sinful living, and yet Jesus healed him. That's pretty cool.
Lucille, thank you for sending in your question on Facebook Messenger. And here's another one that was sent in that same way before we go to the phones at 888-564-6173. Tammy wrote in from Rancho Santa Margarita, California. And she writes, I have a brother-in-law who left the Mormon church after his mom passed away in his 20s. They prayed over her in the hospital with their priesthood, and eventually she still passed away. Since then, this brother-in-law of mine has rejected God, saying he isn't real. Recently, I was speaking to his wife and mentioned that I'd love to hear his story, but I don't want it to turn into a battle. Her response was, John is very persuasive, articulate, and confident. regarding any conversation about religion or philosophy. So I don't recommend bringing it up unless you are prepared for a deep discussion. Right there, I immediately felt inadequate to even approach him. Any thoughts on how I should move forward on this? Brian, what do you tell Tammy?
Well, I think praying about whether this is the time and place to do something like that would be a good start, and then just be open to the Lord, either making it clear that no, this is not the time, or yes, this is the time, and here's the opportunity. And I don't think you have to be intimidated if you don't feel that you're intellectually up to a debate, or you're philosophically abreast of the things that this person might want to talk about. One of the amazing tools that we all have with us is it's in the fact that we have had an encounter with God. And Bobby was alluding to John chapter 9 a moment ago, the man who was born blind. And the man who was born blind was healed by Jesus. And then the religious leaders didn't want to believe that he was actually the person, that was blind from birth. And they were harassing his parents and him. And finally, when he comes before them and they're calling him to give an account for his claim that he was healed by this man, he says this. He says, I don't know. So he's before like the theological elite of the nation, and they're going to grill him. And he obviously probably on one level would have felt like, boy, I don't know anything compared to these guys. But you know what he knew? He said, I don't know if the man's a sinner. Because they said, this man is a sinner. Give glory to God. We know that Moses is from God, but this man's a sinner. And he says, whether he's a sinner or not, I don't know. But this is what I do know. I once was blind. Now I see. Mm-hmm. And so that was pretty much his, that was his defense. And so I think in a situation like this, we might encounter people who are much brighter than we are, who are much more articulate. They're able to argue and debate and all of that. But they can't really argue you out of your own experience. And sometimes just telling your story about what God has done in your life, that can be at least a seed that gets scattered on the soil. So I wouldn't think that you need to rush out and brush up on philosophy and those kinds of things. Mm-hmm. If that's what you do, that's great, but it's not necessary. Just tell them what God has done in your life and see where that goes.
Bobby Conway?
Yeah, you can ask questions as well. And I think to collect info, but I would make sure that you're strong in your own Christian faith. If this person, especially if he's philosophically, beefed up, he can use a lot of different type of categorical things that can be confusing, and that's where it can be a challenge for people at times by bringing up certain logical fallacies. If you're not aware of certain fallacies, then you might find, this is getting confusing, or if you feel like it will, put you in a place that you're going to get defensive, then you want to be careful, because you really want to be able to love on the person, as Pastor Brian's sharing. So prayer, loving on the person. And then if you're not, equipped for the task outside of maybe just sharing the simple gospel, then, like if this person's heard the simple gospel, right, then he probably knows why he doesn't believe it. So you might want to be able to say, so, you walked out of Mormonism, not believing in God, Did you consider Christianity as an option before you became an atheist, or did you just kind of write God off altogether? And in that way, you can kind of figure out where the process was. And so if he says, "Oh yeah, I consider Christianity too," and then you could say, "Oh, what made you check that off?" And therefore, you're just kind of asking questions to see if he has an understanding of the gospel, and if he's equipped, like, you're saying that he is, or told that he is, then he, of course, is going to know what the main beliefs are of the different religions that are out there, I would imagine. But a lot of times people think somebody's equipped just because they got a loud voice, and it doesn't mean that they are. A lot of times, people get credit for being equipped, and they're really not that equipped. They're just overly confident, and it's intimidating maybe to other people. So if you're not intimidated by a strong personality that is confident and potentially is very equipped, then just ask questions and listen. And then, just let him know, I'm just asking questions, but make sure that you know that you could get influenced by that, and then take the questions and then just kind of pull away and then go study out answers and then use that as an opportunity to get stronger. So I have found that in my own life, engaging people with different beliefs, it's incredibly helpful for me because it strengthens me. It allows me the opportunity to get more well-rounded, to not just live in my own bubble. And, even right now, I just started a book by Noam Chomsky yesterday on Palestine. Obviously I share about my views with Israel, but my curiosity is one where I'm like, why are there so many people supporting the Palestinians in this situation of wanting to eradicate Israel? Well, Noam Chomsky has been a huge influence. He's written over 100 books. He's a sociologist. It's his writings that has influenced a lot of these college students. And I'm familiar with the philosophies that drive this, but I want to read the firsthand text for myself. And some would say, well, that's dangerous. Well, maybe, but it protects me from being in a bubble and allows me to see both sides. And so I just say, just be aware that when you're doing that, then you got to go fact check with the Bible as well. So it can be a challenging process, but the fruit of it is you can actually come out stronger and more equipped to deal with more people, and it can build your confidence. And then the hopes are this person comes around and believes in Jesus too.
Now, the thing about Tammy's brother-in-law is if Tammy were to approach him and say, well, have you considered Christianity? He might say, it's the same thing. Christianity, Mormonism, it's all part of the same umbrella. How would you respond to that? Because there are a lot of people who think it's the same thing. It's an offshoot, or, that all Mormons are Christians, etc.
Yeah, we have to define our terms, right? When it comes to the person of Jesus, we need to. A lot of people believe in Jesus, right? The Muslims believe that he was a prophet. When it comes to New Agers, they believe in a historical Jesus who became the Christ, and we too can become a Christ. That is, we can become enlightened. When it comes to Jehovah's Witnesses, they believe that Jesus was the firstborn, the first created of all creation. And they go to Colossians 1:15, and they literally believe the ancient Arian heresy that Athanasius went head to toe with, Arius, back in the 4th century. When it comes to Mormons, they believe that Jesus was the spirit brother of Lucifer, that Jesus had 3 wives, Mary Magdalene, and Martha, that Jesus, is something that we can aspire to become, that we can become gods as well. And so it's really a heavy-duty polytheistic worldview that is Mormonism, and it embodies God because it takes the language of God walking in the cool of the day, or let us create man in our own image, and it implies that, oh, well, then God must be physical because we're physical. So let us make God in our own image. So they become very literalistic in that way. And a lot of Mormons aren't even aware of what Brigham Young said and what some of their other prophets said, and that becomes problematic. So they believe in a different Jesus, a different salvation. When they talk about grace, they believe in a different kind of grace. They don't believe in a grace that will see you all the way through, but rather a grace that will initially forgive you and get you to heaven. So they believe in a different sets of scriptures. They have the Book of Mormon, the Pearl of Great Price, and obviously with the Bible, they're limiting themselves to the King James Version. So that's what I would say as it relates to just knowing how to define terms. Just because somebody uses the same term, right? If you're talking to a Muslim, they'll say, the Muslim will say, I believe in God. Well, you got to define, who is God? And it's the same thing with the person of Jesus, unfortunately. He's been hijacked by lots of different beliefs.
Tammy, thank you for sending in your question on Facebook Messenger. And now we're going to go to the phones. 888-564-6173 is our number. My name is Brian Perez. I'm here with Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway until 5 p.m. Pacific time. We would love to hear from you, chat with you, let us know what's on your mind, let us know what types of questions you have. If you read your Bible this morning and came across a passage and thought, wait, I don't understand that. Or maybe you even heard something here on the radio that you're not quite sure about. Or maybe you watched something on YouTube and you're definitely confused. Well, that's going to happen. So give us a call at 888-564-6173.
So I just had a question to Bobby about Noam Chomsky. Isn't he Jewish? I think he is an atheistic Jew.
That is a good question. But if he is, I'm not sure. I'm looking it up right now. Is he Jewish? That would be.
I'm not sure. I kind of always thought that he was.
He's an American. He's American, obviously.
Yeah.
But you're wondering if that's his roots.
Yeah, I wonder if that's his roots. Yeah, it's interesting. I've read some of his stuff over the years too, and he's very. He's very loved among a certain group of people. Is he Jewish?
He was born to Ashkenazi Jewish immigrants in Philadelphia.
Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? Mm.
According to Wikipedia.
Yeah.
But denies like the Holocaust. I mean, how do you, like Holocaust denial and stuff like that?
Well, and this was my point. Here's somebody who, so many people look to and listen to him, and I think uncritically take what he says as this is reality, this is truth, and yet, how do you give intellectual credibility to anyone who denies the Holocaust? I mean, this is. I've been to the Nazi death camps in Germany. I've been to Dachau. I've walked through it. The Germans don't deny it. They, own it in a good way, in that they are ashamed and they have nationally repented, and they teach the Holocaust in their schools to their students. If you deny the Holocaust in Germany, you can be arrested.
Wow.
So yeah. So I mean, when we think about these smart people, these intellectuals, how smart are they really? Sometimes they're like, wow. It's like, how could somebody so otherwise intelligent be so dumb when it comes to some of these simple things? I saw a quote from Bill Maher the other day, who's, he's no fan of Christians, and he's been quite outspoken against Christianity, but he's kind of had some changes in his views on things. But he was talking about, sending your kids to the Ivy League schools and paying all this money, and look at the stupidity that they're coming out with, and he's talking about the anti-Semitism on Harvard campus and Columbia and these different places. So, yeah, I think, wisdom is the principal thing, the Bible says. With everything in you, get wisdom. You can have the smarts, so to speak. We've all heard about these people are the smartest people in the world, but they do the dumbest things. So it's not about being smart, it's about being wise.
Yeah, it really is. Even reading this kind of dialogue called On Palestine with Ilan Pepe and Noam Chomsky, it's interesting because they're just laying out what they believe the solution needs to be. Mm-hmm. That, you know, they think that Israel's guilty of apartheid.
Yeah.
And they are drawing on what they've learned from South Africa.
Yeah.
And they think that Israel, as a result, needs to be dismantled, and it no longer needs to even think about a two-state option, but rather Palestine needs to kind of have that. And they need to get rid of the current leadership and overthrow.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so that's the threefold solution. Turn it from, you know, keep it a one state, dismantle Israel, and get rid of their leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's going to lead to force.
Yeah. And that's always been the case. You know, Jews and Arabs lived side by side in Israel for literally centuries. And the only time a problem came into existence is when Israel wanted to have its own government. And so, you know, there were various opportunities for a two-state solution. 1937, the Arabic majority was offered a two-state solution. They didn't want it. 1947, they were offered a two-state solution. They didn't want it. So when Israel declared their independence from the British, who were controlling the land, the Arabic population would have nothing to do with it, and all of the surrounding Arabic nations attacked Israel, and so they ended up in the battle. You know, they were outnumbered 1,000 to 1 at least, and you know, in the War of Independence, they end up, you know, the term that the Arabs use is the Nakba. The Nakba, and they talk about the Nakba, which means the catastrophe. So the catastrophe is basically they lost the war. That's a catastrophe. They tried to destroy Israel. Israel, against all odds, comes out the victor. And, you know, ever since then. So I was thinking about it the other day because I was reading about the PLO, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, that originated in 1964. And how, you know, it's like the Arabic world, and, you know, Muslims predominantly, they were happy to live among Jews as long as Jews were subservient to them. But if you put them on an equal level, like Jews have their own government, then that's when it's completely out of the question. There's no, you know, can't have that at all. So that's why from the river to the sea is basically we're going to drive the Jews out of the land. That's the whole point. They don't want a two-state solution. They want all the land. Because Islam, part of the Islamic vision is world domination. And in Islam, it's not even people as much as land. You get the land. And, you know, you listen to these Hamas guys who are talking right now. They're talking about, hey, we're just getting started. You know, Israel's just our first project. We're going to deal with the Jews, and then we're coming after the Christians. And then we're going to, basically, they're telling you exactly what Islam has always said. We're going to dominate the world. We're going to conquer the world. Allah is the one to be praised throughout the world. So,
and it must be hard for them to, you know, think, yeah, one day we're going to conquer America, or for example.
Yeah.
They can't even conquer little Israel. So that's probably what gets them even more,
But you know what they go on? They go on their past, because obviously there were the Ottoman Empire, and prior to that you had the Abbasids and the Umayyads and all of these Islamic caliphates, these empires. These guys basically, for the most part, ruled the world. So for them, it's like we just got to get back to where we were before.
All right, got to take a break. Bobby, we'll see if you have any other comments to make when we come back here on Pastor's Perspective, but the music says we've got to go, at least for a few minutes. We'll be right back. 888-564-6173. Got lots of calls on the board. We will get to your questions, and even if we don't get to them before 4 p.m. Pacific time, well, it's Thursday. We're going to be here till 5 p.m. Pacific time today. So keep those calls a-coming at 888-564-6173. Brian Broderson and Bobby Conway here answering your questions until 5 o'clock at 888-564-6173. Hey, we're back on Pastor's Perspective. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching as well on Facebook and YouTube. 888-564-6173 is our number until 5 p.m. Pacific time on this Thursday, the 2nd of November. 888-564-6173. And I say Pacific time, and that reminds me that this weekend it is time once again to change our clocks. Of course, our phones, all that stuff happens automatically, and we get an extra hour of sleep this weekend. Hooray, hooray. All right, 888-564-6173. We were talking about Israel and Palestine and everything else going on right now in the world, and came up to our break, so couldn't finish our thoughts. Bobby, I think you wanted to say a few words. Go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, I thought what Brian said was spot on. I mean, the 1967 war between the Arabs and the Jews was absolutely miraculous. The Jews gave a preemptive attack. They sensed that they were going to be attacked, and it was in 7 days. I mean, they captured the Golan Heights, which would be in the north. It was amazing what they ended up doing. And they even gave back some of what they captured. But in many attempts that they've sought to, extend a hand to the Palestinians, what's happened is it's never enough, because they want the full package, as Pastor Brian mentioned. And unfortunately, they voted Hamas in 2006, which is a terrorist organization. And it is sad. I mean, my heart absolutely goes out to the Palestinians. There's a handful of churches in Gaza. There's a Baptist church there. There's a Roman Catholic church there. There's believers that are, crying out to our Savior for protection right now. And that's the thing. And we can step back and, we need to pray for Hamas too. I mean, God once saved a terrorist. His name was Saul of Tarsus. And he saved this terrorist and used him to write 13 letters of the New Testament. And so we need God to get a hold of some of this. But that same terrorist mentality that Saul had that caused him to go ham on the church, pun intended, what ended up happening is that was the same passion and zeal that God used to him to spread the gospel. So if God could get a hold of some of these terrorists and save them, they've got a great boldness, right? I mean, they dig deep. But what Brian's saying is absolutely right. Muslims are driven by Sharia law. And not only that, wanting to see Sharia law imposed over the entire world. And this is where I think some of our own politicians are clueless on Islam. Not that all Muslims, there's plenty of Muslims that will call out moderate ones what Hamas is doing. But there is a terrorist mentality here that we should not permit. And we should also know that even in Islam, it allows and makes room for and even says to use deception if need be. And what's really crazy is while they will use deception and do use deception, they're also telling us the truth about what they're going to do. And we're not even listening to that. And so what's unbelievable to me is in the same way that, hey, the Jews saw something miraculous happen in 7 days. We don't want to, they're like, there was 200 years of crusades with 7 different crusades, and they ended up, taking it, from basically, the end of the 1200s all the way up until the 20th century. That went on for a long time. This is incredible. So all that to say, I'm just concerned that our politicians that are trying to tear stuff down, you think about like that oppressor oppressed, right? So Palestinians are oppressed and Israel's the oppressor. Well, America is the oppressor of the Native Americans, which was sad. It was a horrible history that happened there. But what are we supposed to do? Just blow up our entire culture and give and go find the few Native Americans that are there and say, here's everything? Or do we recognize that it was really bad, really wrong, and we just try to make the best moving forward instead of just destroying everything that we've tried to build? So it's almost like they have this utopian vision of socialism that we could actually live together, but they don't even see the dystopia that they create and produce in the process of trying to arrive there.
Great conversation today on Pastor's Perspective. So glad that we archive all of our episodes on Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify, so you can go back and listen. Yeah,
these are crazy, crazy things. One last thought on that with the, as you were mentioning, Bobby, the it's one thing to have a disagreement about who has the right to the land, but this has morphed into something that's even beyond that. It's not the protest on college campuses and all of this. I mean, this is kind of death to the Jews is really what is being promoted in these things. It's not so much like give us an equality or a justice thing. It's going back to that same drumbeat that's always been there from the very beginning. When the PLO came into being in 1964, the Gaza Strip was under the control of Egypt. The West Bank was under the control of Jordan. Jordan controlled everything all the way up through East Jerusalem. And so there because, people, this ridiculous accusation of apartheid or this occupation idea. Well, none of this even existed when the PLO came into being. But what did exist is a Jewish state, and that's what they opposed. And it was the PLO who, from the very beginning, said our goals in their charter. One of the goals was to drive the Jews into the sea. I mean, which basically means, get them out and kill them. So this is the frightening thing right now is this is really the rhetoric that is coming out of not just Hamas in Gaza and other terrorist supporters around the world, but it's coming out of students on university campuses across America. That's pretty scary.
Yeah, our kids' age, that are out there, 19 and 20, wanting to see the eradication of the Jewish people. Unbelievable.
But I was reading Exodus this morning, and just another, reading the story of the Pharaoh, and it never ceases to amaze me. The older I get, the longer I go on in life and walk with the Lord, just how, absolutely true Scripture is when it describes the depravity of human beings, the rebellious nature of people against God. And man, Pharaoh he is the embodiment of all of that. He is just going toe to toe with the Lord, and he's never going to back down. He never backs down until he finally is drowned in the Red Sea. That's when he finally gives up. And it's like, wow, this is, talk about a hard heart, but it's a picture of the potential of the human heart. That people can become so, because we look at, like these Hamas guys. I mean, they're basically saying what we did on October 7th, we're going to do that over and over and over again. They're not ashamed of this. They're not sorry for it. They're proud of it, and they plan to keep doing it.
Yep.
How do you ever do anything to change the mind of a person like that?
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, unless, apart from an absolute miracle, there's no changing. But I was thinking when you were talking about Saul of Tarsus being converted, but I was also thinking of a more current example, and that is the man who is known as the son of Hamas, who was who was part of Hamas and then defected and actually became a Christian. And boy, he's very courageous because he's speaking out all over the place, and he's telling it like it is, So you gotta hand it to him because he's putting his life on the line doing that.
Yep. Bobby?
Yeah. I think what Brian said is, I'm glad you brought up the son of Hamas. That is a powerful witness right there. Yeah. Lastly, I'd just say we really do have to understand that diplomacy conversations, if we could just sit down with them and talk reason into them, it's not the way it works. We're thinking Western, and that's part of our problem. And again, I wish our politicians were trained in ethics and in worldview. And you see it, like take the Ukrainian and Russian war and what was going on there. And you have 3 versions of ethics, as I've shared before, on the program. You've got utilitarianism, you have deontological ethics. So, utilitarian ethics, hey, do what's best for the most amount of people, but that just assumes you would know what the future is to even weigh out all of that. And so, when it comes to, closing up the airspace or opening it up, you take a utilitarian approach. Then you have the Machiavellian ethic of a Putin. And if you've ever read Machiavelli's Prince, this is just a brutal dictatorship. And that's the philosophy of might makes right. So you have Putin, that's his worldview. It's Machiavellian. You don't sit and have diplomatic talks with the guy that his end goal is to have more power, and his means is crush you, use deception or whatever need be to get there. When you're dealing with, the diplomats who are sitting around their calculators and trying to crunch numbers on math, there's no real sense of right and wrong. And deontological ethics is a duty-based ethics that says there's an absolute right and there's an absolute wrong. And it's either right to do this or it's wrong to do this. And you do what's right, and you can't determine what all those consequences are going to be. That doesn't mean you might not think about that, but you ultimately got to do what's right. And so, Christianity is a deontology ethic. We believe in right versus wrong. We don't use deception. Right? You have people like Putin, it's going to be Machiavellian. And then you take the worldview of Islam, and it too ends up being a lot like a Machiavellian ethic, because Sharia law, domination, using deceit. And so if we're aware of the different ethics and how that forms people's worldview, then we'll realize how futile it is to think that we can just go and have a diplomatic conversation about this. And that's what a lot of our politicians do, because they're not trained in philosophy and ethics and worldview. And they're often businessmen with big egos, and they'll go whichever direction they feel like they need to go so that they can maintain their status and their role. And so that's really problematic. And so they waffle back and forth.
888-564-6173 is the number to call if you want to talk about this topic or any topic. We're here till 5 p.m. Pacific time. 888-564-6173. I'm Brian Perez here with Bobby Conway and Brian Broderson. And Sean hung up, so let's go to Donna calling from Whittier, California, watching on Facebook. And Donna's got a question, a follow-up question from yesterday's program. Go ahead, Donna. Thanks for calling in.
Hi, yes, thank you. I love you guys. My husband and I we're always listening to you guys. He listens on his Spotify, I listen on mine, and sometimes we'll cross rooms, and he'll have one day on, I'll have another day on. I'm like, hey, I had him on first. So funny. We just love everything you guys do. So my question is, first I wanted to say that yesterday's call about Dia de los Muertos, we're also Mexican, and a lot of our family members do this, and it goes back to even that Coco movie shows it. Today is a day where it goes a little bit further than what she said yesterday. They actually believe that people cross over on this day. It's only one day a year. And you put food and stuff on the altar or wherever it's a little bit more than memorializing. So it got me thinking yesterday, because my daughter's always on me saying that I'm too critical and I shouldn't be thinking that way. And it's just a fun thing and a loving thing for your family members. She's younger than I am. But my question is, what about, sometimes I find myself like asking God if he could talk to my people, like, could you please tell my mom this or my brother this? Or is that wrong?
Well, it's wrong in as much as it's not the way it works. And it's not anything that we're ever instructed to do. So there's not only no biblical instruction to connect with the dead, from our standpoint, but there's clear instruction not to do it. So when you go back to the Old Testament, you go back to, I think, Leviticus 18, Deuteronomy 19, I think. In both passages there, it speaks about communication with the dead and forbids that. And I think the reason is clearly that there are evil spirits. And when we seek that kind of communication, we actually open ourselves up to contact with the evil spirits directly. And so that's why God forbids it.
Okay. How about praying to God, asking him if he could talk to them for you?
Well, of course, you can ask God to do anything, and he's going to do, whatever. But I don't, again, once people have died, and gone to be with the Lord, then, they're with the Lord. And I wouldn't say that absolutely no way would God ever relay a message to your relative on your behalf. But it doesn't seem likely that he would, because they're doing great. They don't need any messages from the earth. Everybody's 100% having a great time.
Yep. Bobby Conway.
It's interesting, Donna, that's kind of what I've done before. But now Brian's just kind of blown the ministry of healing that it works in my own life. But no, it's, he's right. I mean, we just don't know, but I do think it could be cathartic, when a loved one passes away, while we don't pray to the dead. It doesn't seem off the board to be able to say, hey, Lord, can you just let, my grandma know how much I loved her and how much she means to me? And whether or not that's passed on, it's communicated to him. And, if somebody asks me to say hi to somebody, hey, tell your wife I said hi, I usually don't, but sometimes I do. And so who knows how that all works. Because I forget. God doesn't forget.
Sometimes I think the Lord brought Bobby to us so we could actually just help him.
So he's not here to help us. We're here to help him.
No. Brian, you are, though. I tell my wife, like for the listeners, like when I come into town, Pastor Brian's busy. Usually I'm able to get some time with him, and he is absolutely cathartic for me to be with. I feel there's just something about his even-keeled, laid-back, demeanor, and he is amazing for my personality to be around. And I definitely, there is something that you can just feed off of certain energies. And, so I'm hoping when Pastor Brian steps down from his role that he'll come out to Charlotte and live here, and we'll do life in North Carolina.
Well, if I have to wear a turtleneck, that's not going to happen.
I can't see you in a turtleneck.
No.
Bobby, the feelings are mutual.
Aw.
Did I make you anxious?
No, it is cathartic. It's just a different kind of cathartic for me. But it's a good one.
All right, Donna, thanks for calling us today here on Pastor's Perspective. 888-564-6173. Got an hour to call us. We are here till 5 p.m. today. Would love to chat with you. 888-564-6173. Where is Ruth? Ruth hung up, and Cecilia hung up. Okay, you guys, don't hang up. 888-564-6173. Brenda's here. Let's talk to Brenda, listening in Carson, California. Welcome to Pastor's Perspective. Brenda, how does the station sound today on your radio?
Oh, it sounds great.
Awesome.
I'm enjoying it.
Glad to hear that. How can we help you?
I wanted to know, what was Hagar's age when she gave birth to Ishmael?
What do you think, Brian?
We don't know, but she was young. Obviously, the situation with Sarah was that Sarah was old and, she thought she was physically beyond the ability to get pregnant, but God miraculously worked that out. So Hagar was a much younger woman, but we're never told what her age was.
Now, is there a reason you're asking this question, Brenda?
Well, yeah, because I think on the pastor's sermon on Sunday, he mentioned that she was 21 when she gave birth. So I don't know where he got that from.
I don't either. I know that he didn't get it from the Bible because it doesn't say that. It doesn't give her age.
I don't know. And then again, I don't know if he was just joking about it or...
Well, sometimes we can speculate. I've heard many people speculate about the age of Mary, for example, who was young when she gave birth to Jesus. Some people have had her as young as 15 years old. Others have said, oh, no, she was 17 or 18. Nobody really knows how old she was, but people guess at those things, and there's nothing the matter with that. Unless you say dogmatically, yes, I know she was 21. The Lord spoke to me and told me that she was 21.
So as long as your pastor didn't say that, we're okay. Thanks for calling us today, Brenda. 888-564-6173. Now let's go up to Folsom, California. Bill is listening there on the K-Wave app. Bill, thank you so much for downloading the app and listening to us today. Welcome.
How you doing, gentlemen?
Doing well, thank you.
I was wondering, it's always been on my mind, if the third of the angels that got kicked out of heaven, that are with Satan, did they get stripped of their power?
Bobby Conway, what would you say?
Well, they still have a tremendous amount of power, and so does Satan. And so what happened is not so much their power was stripped, it's their location in relationship to God was stripped. That's where our battle is against the principalities and powers of this dark age, according to Scripture. So, of course, the demons and Satan have power, but it all falls under the sovereignty of God. And so we can see in Revelation 12 and Isaiah 14, Ezekiel 28, where we can learn a little bit about these fallen angels, but they're ultimately going to be judged. But in the meantime, they are powerful. They have a ton of knowledge. They're smart. They're witty. They're deceptive. And they wreak havoc. In fact, I think there is all kinds of invisible warfare going on in heavy-duty ways right now as I speak around the world.
I think Pastor Brian addresses that in his book, The Powers of Darkness and the People of God, don't you, Brian?
I do, yes, but not necessarily specifically that question. But yeah, what Bobby said is the case. Of course, they have power. That's what we see, the demonic activity that we read about in the Gospels, for example. That's a demonstration of the power of the devil.
For sure. 888-564-6173. Did that help you, Bill?
Thank you. Yes, it sure does. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for calling us today here on Pastor's Perspective. Let me take a call or a question that was sent in here. Why is Mary called the Mother of God when, unlike God, she is not eternal? Is this heretical? What do you say, Brian?
That's an interesting, this is a theological dispute that goes back literally centuries and centuries and centuries. And some people would say, well, no, Mary's, and sometimes Protestants would take this position because of the deification of Mary, more or less on the part of the Catholic Church. They would take the position that, well, Mary is the mother of the human side of Jesus, but then, his divinity comes from God, which is true, but you cannot separate the person of Jesus like that. You can't say he's half God and half human, or, even in one sense he's fully God and fully human. Jesus he's one with two natures. So in some ways you could say that. I was just reading Luke the other morning, and where the angel comes to Mary and tells her that she's going to, be the mother of the Messiah, basically. And then Mary goes to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth says, "What is this that the mother of my Lord should come to me?" And so this is where the whole idea of the mother of God comes in. So, Bobby, what's the term? There's a Greek...
Theotokos.
Yeah. Say it again.
Yeah. Theotokos.
Theotokos, yeah. So that's the kind of the term that was attached to the theological debate. But the debate came down, and I think rightfully so, in the Orthodox position, is that Mary is the mother of God.
20 seconds, Bobby. Want it?
I think that was a good place to end.
Okay.
Right there.
Then we'll do that, but not totally.
Because my explanation will be too much for this time.
Way more than 20 seconds. All right. Yeah, it is kind of a deep topic. You can't really answer it in 20 seconds. In fact, all of the questions we have on the board right now are kind of deep, which is why I didn't want to get to one of those. I'd rather talk to you guys next hour. So don't hang up. Stay on hold. We're going to keep the phone lines open till 5 p.m. Pacific time. 888-564-6173. Pastor's Perspective, hour number 1, was sponsored by Calvary Chapel, Costa Mesa.